Hi there, and welcome to another interview. Today, I got the fabulous Frank with me, and we're going to have a frank discussion, I guess. And I'm going to ask Frank the same question I asked absolutely everybody. And that is, hey, Frank, why did you become carnivore?
Hi, Stephen. Good question. It's been, well, I guess I should go back to my background a bit. At school, I was often referred to as the daydreamer, and I kind of spent most of my school time daydreaming and messing around with my mates. So unfortunately, I didn't get any GCSEs. I've later since realised I very recently did an autism spectrum test, and I scored very high, although I'm not diagnosed. So there might be that might have some part to play there. Through my time at school, I kind of found drugs quite early on, and that's been quite a big part of my life until not too recently. But I just felt like I needed a way to escape all the time and not face up to life. So since leaving school, I went to music technology college and didn't really make much of that. Got a bit fed up with everything and went off to Thailand at the age of 25 because I hadn't found a real career for myself. So I went there to teach English and also to get away from my lifestyle of sort of kind of escapism. I found the teaching quite stressful in the beginning. It's not something I'd ever done before. It was heavy going, no aircon in the classrooms, kids going crazy everywhere. So I continued drinking pretty heavily when I was there. I kept up with that for about 2 years until it got very serious and I ended up in hospital. So I spent a couple of days in hospital with gastroenteritis, and I came out and realised enough's enough. So taking after my father, who was an athletics coach, although I'd never taken to it when he was coaching, I pretty much ran out of hospital and didn't stop for 2 years. So I taught myself how to train well. I didn't even ask him for that much advice, but I became pretty decent, semi kind of elite in Asian terms, distance runner over 2 years. I then decided to come back home, and I'd always loved cookery. I've been cooking since I was 16. I'm very well versed in all cuisine. And I'd never wanted to be a chef and could see it was pretty hard going. But I just didn't know what else to do. So I chose to do pastry, and Le Cordon Bleu in Bangkok while I was still teaching. So French culinary school in Bangkok, and came back, and I've been doing patisserie at all levels from Michelin to 5-star hotels across the last 10, 12 years now. So coming back into this industry, as we know, notoriously lots of, hard hours, drinking culture and the rest. And I fell back into that because I just didn't have time, really felt like I had time for exercise. So going forward, I think it was around about 5 years ago, I thought I would pick up or back up on exercise in any sort of meaningful amount again. And I started just hill sprinting and doing the odd bit of training. I started resistance training, and then I started listening to podcasts. I think it was Rich Roll that I first heard, maybe about 6 years ago. Obviously, he's a vegan ultra runner, so I heard a lot of a lot of his guests. I think it was Will Bolshewitz first of all, and I read his book Fiber Fueled, and he's a gut health expert in another spectrum, and that started me off on a sort of a dive of nutrition, so to speak. Having been a trained athlete back in my 20s, I did obviously pick up on sports nutrition then, and I was fueling myself. Carb heavy, of course, but I did understand the importance of protein as well. So I picked up back on that. I did actually go down the vegan route for a little while in the beginning. I tried 6 months, felt pretty terrible. And then my studies brought me further down to the likes of Mark Hyman, who's a leading functional medicine practitioner. I started to understand the importance of grass-fed animals, and started to listen to his guests. And this led me to Dave Asprey and the world of biohacking. So I was still living my pretty debaucherous lifestyle as a chef, but I was fueling myself as well as I could when I could, based on all this knowledge. Then, so it's been the past 4 years diving on different experts. I've been through Dr. Gundry. I've read most of his books, so I found out about anti-nutrients in plants. I took a little bit from everyone, and I had this what felt like an incredibly optimized diet with a balance of high quality proteins, wild fish, grass-fed meats, all of the phytonutrients in all the plants, all the nuts and seeds, And obviously, being a pastry chef, I understand sugar. I learned about all of the sweeteners. I played around with them all. I ended up settling on allulose for myself. Which is some quite interesting research at the moment. But really, I had a carbohydrate addiction. Never put on a massive amount of weight, so I guess I'm lucky in that respect. I would pretty much always make a little kind of keto dessert with my sweeteners after every meal. You just, don't realize, how addicted to carbohydrates we are. So going forward, it got to a year and a half ago that I decided that alcohol does not do me any favors. I've been destroying myself for my entire life, and that's the gateway to other substances as well. So I had to knock it on the head, and I didn't find it that difficult. In fact, I'd been thinking about it for the past 3 or 4 years and had done it a few times, but it just slept back in. Oh, I can have one. And then for me, one's not one, one's 4, and then all night, and then again and again, round in circles, and anxiety and depression and Anyway, so I've been teetotal for a year and a half now, and I continued with my so-called optimal diet, researched by all of the world's leading experts, and I didn't feel any better. I was, if anything, I felt more depressed in some respects over the past year. I just did not know what else I could do. I've learned about circadian health. I do some videos with you, and you can see I've always got my red light glasses on, and so I've been cold plunging in the bath, ice in the bath every day for years now. Saunas 4 times a week, 4 times resistance training, hill sprints, meditate, grounding. I'm grounded right now on my mat on the floor. What else can you do? So it got to the stage that I was also struggling with my relationship, because I had what felt like sort of clouded, dark thoughts in our interactions, and it just seemed, I just couldn't work out what was going on with me, really. So unfortunately, I left my partner this year, and decided that something drastic had to happen. Now, I'd obviously researching all of the diets for the past 5 years. I've known about carnivore for 4 years, I would say. So I had been following some of the leaders, and I just thought, what have I got to lose? So I've been carnivore for 6 months now. I would say since learning from a lot of experts. Obviously, I'm down the rabbit hole now. I realize that you probably shouldn't do it overnight, and it might be better to do it over a month for your microbiome and gut dysbiosis. But I dived straight in, and I made a few condiments, special allulose things and bits and bobs, and did that for a week, and then continued eating with dairy for the week after, and then I did the full Lion diet for 2 weeks after that. But going back, I would say after 24 hours, my first night's sleep was exceptional, and I felt good the next day. And then after 48 hours, I felt something so different. It was just, it was almost like enlightenment. I actually had a dip in the sea at 6 a.m. that morning, and I was like, what is happening? It was just like the inflammation in my body was gone. And my mental and my, there was none of this darkness, this dark cloud that I'd felt for so long. It was just gone. And it's been like that ever since. Yeah, that's my story.
Yeah, that's thank you, Frank. And I know that you're very emotional about it. I think people can hear that and see that as well. But it is crazy, isn't it, that just eating the right way or taking certain things out, whichever way you want to look at it, can make such a big difference to your mental well-being and how you feel, getting away from anxiety and depression. And it's very heartening to hear you be so honest. And, if you want a moment to gather your thoughts again, that's fine. It is interesting that you said you knew about Carnivore for 4 years, but then you decided sort of 6 months ago. So was there like a tipping point where you just thought, I've got to give this a go, or was it someone you saw? What happened?
As I say, I can't remember exactly. As I said, I would just listen to a Carnivore podcast every now and then. I had been probably for the past two years, just to see what's happening in every space in nutrition, because it's as I say, I can see now that I definitely have autistic tendencies. Everything I've ever done I've just done one thing at a time and not done anything else, and not been able to focus on anything or anyone else around me apart from that one thing. I guess I can't remember exactly. As I say, I had heard that there were, the benefits that people were finding. I think it might be, I did read Brain Energy by Christopher Palmer probably about 4 years ago. So I had actually been low carb cyclical keto for roughly for the past 4 years. There might have been a connection there, because I'd always tried to keep the carbohydrates low, but obviously they weren't therapeutically low enough because of my sort of, I'd never tracked macros, and I was probably never under 50 grams, really, honestly. And I'd say the therapeutic dose has really got to be below 20 grams a day. So
Yeah,
I guess it was just joining the dots and then thinking, right, let's go.
yeah, and I think you're right. It makes a big difference between 50 grams or 20 grams of carbohydrates, which always annoys me about studies that claim they've tested a low carb diet, and it's never that low, not even 50. So that's good. I don't know if you'll be happy with this question, but when you say autistic tendencies, what does that mean?
Oh, well, as I say, I'm not diagnosed as autistic, but I did a test this year, because obviously I was just searching for, it was an ADHD test, but they're both, I think you go one way or the other. And I just thought it's pretty clear I've got ADHD, because I can't concentrate on anything else, or concentrate for more than a second without doing something else. But my test came up, I think it was 33 out of 36 on the autism spectrum. So I'm actually on the Psychiatry UK waiting list, which is more of a fast track, I think. So yeah, so I'm just wondering if that's something to do with it. And that's definitely why I found my relationship so difficult as well, I think.
Yeah, okay. Well, thanks for answering that. I mean, people will want to know how you sort of saw it yourself. I think, I've interviewed Bart Kay, who also is on the autistic spectrum, but he didn't know until he was an adult either. I think it's one of those things that what's normal to you is normal to you. It's very difficult to step outside yourself and look back and think, right, okay, what's going on here? So you said you were a daydreamer, but I think from your history, you sound like you're a doer as well. I mean, you went off to Thailand to teach English. So that's not a daydreamer, that's a doer. Definitely someone, and then training to be a pastry chef. What about the sweetener there? You said I can't say it. I've had a long day. Allulase is one that you use. Why do you use that one?
Well, it was the latest one. I mean, I'd been using the erythritol fruit mix, but there was research. I can't. I haven't had to use one for so long now. I think it's got a slightly positive effect on blood sugar. But at the same time, it is derived from corn. But most of if you buy a high quality one, it's non-GMO corn. yeah, that was where I'd got with the research on that. I think, yeah, that was where I'd arrived at, and it seemed to, I had to warn a blood sugar monitor and used it, and no response.
So you said it was like a sort of a magical moment there, and you got very emotional, which is good, because it's nice to be honest about how we feel, I think. So have those improvements continued?
They have, yeah. I'm just, yeah, as I said, there's no, it's like it is like light and day. It was like I was under a cloud, but for what seemed like my entire life, until I had a drink, and then everything was forgotten. But then, being sober for a year and still feeling like that, it was tough, really tough. And I lost my father in the same year. I guess I would like to speak about my father a little bit as well. So
Yeah,
he was
please
an
do.
athletics
Yeah.
coach. He was an athletics coach for 20 years, Brighton and Hove senior men, and he ran throughout that time a lot. I think he averaged, because I've got all of his logs, I think he averaged 18 miles a day for 15 years, just for fun. He never did any speed work. He would always run roughly the same time in races. It was just 8-minute miling, same on the race. But he was a very unorthodox coach, but his runners loved him. The other coaches thought he was crazy. But he did train a 2-hour 14 marathoner in London, which is fairly respectable. But he didn't really, I don't think he really understood diet that much. And he knew that we needed to eat carbohydrates, and that was pretty much all he ate. Okay, so he would eat, I don't know, 8 potatoes and steamed veg, and loads of fruit throughout the day, and toast for breakfast. When I look back, there was almost no protein. He might have a couple of eggs a week or something. I just can't even remember him buying animal protein at all. And so when he stopped running and coaching, he continued to walk miles and miles and miles. He was very fit, but he continued this diet. He continued this way of eating. And this was before I was really knowledgeable enough to play any part in that. 2 years later, he got skin cancer. He always loved to lie in the sun, and he always ate margarine on his toast. We know there could be some connections there. But where am I? He 2 years after that got type 2. The skin cancer faded away, fine. But type 2, and then 2 years after that, Lewy body dementia, which we now know is technically now can be termed as type 3 diabetes, insulin resistance in the brain. And it was a slow decline over 5 years, but the last year was absolutely brutal. It was brutal. So there's my link there to why I am so interested now in metabolic health. I did actually start my health coaching diploma around the time I got sober, which I've now just finished. So I have my own story of mental health, and I have the evidence there of a high carbohydrate diet. And also another link I could mention, my dad actually gave me the law of running when I started running from Tim Noakes. And we know the story about Tim Noakes, got type 2 diabetes off of his own advice. He is the man who advised us to keep pouring carbohydrates down our necks, as Professor Barquet would say. And he has since reversed all of his literature. In fact, I've got this here.
The ketogenic book.
Which is his, ketogenic book, and is now, I think, I can't remember exactly, but is it the case that they have done the science that a 2-hour marathon could be run in Eliud Kipchoge's time, fat adapted? I think it's possible. Anyway, that's just to show you that you can perform seriously at a serious level without carbohydrates. And as we know now, Tim Noakes himself is also a carnivore, or 95%, because the science is there.
Yeah, absolutely. Very sad about your father. You kindly sent me a photograph as well. So it must have been pretty horrible to see that decline, especially as he'd been so athletic and running so much. Did you ever feel that he was the inspiration for your running? I mean, is that what made you want to run because he was so consistent?
It it was genuinely, I needed to do something when I came out of hospital, and I just thought, I'll give it a go, and I started running around parks in Bangkok at 38 degrees in the in the night. There aren't many parks either, but it's an absolute metropolis. It's a nightmare for running. But that happened to be where I was living at the time. They do have some good tracks there, so I started doing track sessions, and I did all of that training in that climate, and most of my races there. I only did one race when I came over for a holiday here on the seafront in Brighton, and I was second. I just bottled it at the end. I could have anyway. Yeah, so I ran some good times. I won a half marathon, and I ran a decent 10K time. Yeah, it was great. And he said it was the best 2 years of his life, even though we were just talking on the phone, and I was showing him my race results and It's still the best years of his life.
And what do you most enjoy about Carnivore then?
For me, there are so many mechanisms, because I have so having this background in an absolute passion and love for food and cuisine would, given the opportunity, I would spend 4 hours thinking about what I'm going to cook, going to buy the stuff, then cooking it, and then spending 20 minutes to eat it. And that was literally, if I had the time, that would be my life. That I would just get lost in that. So the freedom from that is just I mean, it's sad in a way, because these culinary traditions and, building these flavors with lots of things and stuff like that. But for me now, I need to get on with a new career, and it's just, I just don't have to think about anything in that respect. And also, as I said, the mental health is number one. Just how my body feels now as well. I just feel so much lighter. Like, I feel lighter on my feet. I feel like my joints and my knees are they're just sort of feels like you glide along. So it's really, really super anti-inflammatory.
And do you have much less, depressive feelings? I mean, have they completely gone?
No, what I would say is that it keeps me on, I'm above a threshold, and I've never gone below it since. And I'm actually absolutely petrified to even consume more than like 20 grams of carbohydrates, just because I don't want to go there again. That's how I feel. Can't say I feel amazing every day. Also, I can't say my energy levels are amazing either yet, because I have spent my life destroying myself, and I've worked pretty hard as well. And I'm just sort of repairing myself.
Yeah, it takes a long time. I mean, one of the things is, you see, I don't edit the videos. We've got that bit where you get very emotional and it sounds like it's a magic wand, but we've still got to adapt. So, 25 years of, I think you used the term debauchery, is not going to instantly be fixed in 3 weeks of carnivores. I think that was an interesting choice of words. I'm glad you mentioned your dad there, because our parents, it's very difficult. I lost both my parents when I was very young, and I feel that if I'd have known then what I know now, I might have been able to help them a little bit. But hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, I'm gonna. Sorry, carry on.
I was going to say, with my father, it was just when his dementia had just started the symptoms was showing more so. This was just when I'd started to get back into nutrition. And I was on that vegan bandwagon at that time, and I was feeding him that stuff. And then it got to the stage where I got another heavy job with a lot of hours, and I couldn't see him so much when I started to learn more. He had carers there, and they were cooking for him, fair enough, and they were doing him bologneses and stuff like that, I think, at times, and shepherd's pie and stuff like that. So at least there was some animal protein in there in the final. But I mean, you can imagine what could have happened if you'd have really pushed that. It could have, just held him stable for a bit longer, or you would maybe not have seen such a dramatic decline. It was, Anyway,
it's heartbreaking. Yeah, it's heartbreaking. Anyway, Frank, I want to thank you for a really heartfelt interview. I've really enjoyed speaking to you. It's nice to meet you the other day as well at a conference, and hopefully in about a year's time, we can do a catch up and see how you're getting on and how your coaching's gone. I'll put a link in the description to your coaching if you would kindly send me the link. And I just want to thank you once again for coming on.
Okay, thanks a lot, Stephen. Great to speak.